All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our third installment of our sustainability webinar series. We're really excited that you're back joining us today. Today's webinar is going to be on third-party certification for sustainability on projects. And just wanted to give you a quick introduction for myself. My name is Jason Hummel, and I'm currently serving as a resident engineer at the East Campus IPO office at Fort Meade in the Baltimore district. And today I'll be kind of the support for our presenter. I would just ask a couple of things as we get started here. One is to please keep your microphones on mute. If you have a question at any time during the presentation, please feel free to put that question in the chat, and I will kind of monitor those and I'll bring them up to our presenter as we go through the presentation. So we'll make sure to get to your questions, but please put them in the chat and keep your microphones on mute. Thank you very much. Well, without further ado, let me introduce our presenter for this afternoon. Ms. Kelli Polzin is a registered architect, a lead accredited professional, and engineering and construction manager for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Northwestern Division on the Department of Veterans Affairs Program Management Office. She started her USACE career at Seattle District, where she had extensive involvement in sustainable design and development during all phases of project delivery, leading projects through LEED Silver and Gold certifications. She later went on to headquarters, where she served as a sustainability program manager for engineering and construction, and transitioned to DVA PMO engineering and construction manager position to focus on healthcare construction. In her current position, she's supporting DVA program major construction projects in design and construction in Portland, Oregon, American Lake, Washington, Fort Harrison, Montana, and St. Louis, Missouri.
Thanks, Jason. Hopefully you can hear me. All right, great. Looking forward to getting a lot of good feedback today. As Jason mentioned, we're going to cover third-party certification for sustainable buildings. So we'll go through that, and there are probably going to be a lot of questions, and we'll do our best to answer those today. But certainly looking for feedback for updating this content for our prospect course as well. So getting into this, objectives for today, being able to identify third-party certification systems that we're using for DoD projects, explaining the basic principles of LEED and functionality of LEED Online, and then identifying guiding principles-based programs and understand their context. On this page, we've got several resources available. I think some of the content on the slides today, I just want to let you know, we were updating right up until the start of this presentation, so I think we got some links cleared up here, and we'll be posting these slides in Teams following the end of this presentation. But wanted to direct your attention to the top link on Whole Building Design Guide. We've got a tri-service sustainability program page that has several useful links within it outlining Army, Air Force, and Navy policy documents, as well as providing access to the High Performance Sustainable Building checklist for tracking and reporting, several training links and other resources regarding third-party certification, tracking, and sustainable design and construction. And then the other links below for USGBC, who maintains the LEED rating systems, GBCI, where you actually go through for LEED accredited professional credentialing and building certifications, LEED Online for access to various documentation for your credit entries and project registration, and then Credit Library. This link has a lot of good interactive information available on LEED credits that you can pursue on your projects. We'll discuss third-party certification systems, basic principles of LEED Online, benefits of becoming LEED accredited professional, and we'll briefly touch on the guiding principles certification paths as well. So I wanted to call everyone's attention to the table 1-1 within the USC 1202 for high performance and sustainable building requirements. For navigating this, wanted to focus you on Chapter 4 of the document that outlines requirements for tracking and reporting. That's our internal checklist that we use on Army, Navy, Air Force projects for checking off the compliance that the PDT is going through to ensure our projects that we're delivering are matching up and meeting the requirements outlined in the USC 1202. This is to verify our compliance internally for guiding principles. And just wanted to make sure you all are aware of that, because I think that process is sometimes overlooked in lieu of pursuing the third-party certification, but it's definitely a parallel documentation path that we need to be doing on our projects along with third-party certification. And for third-party certification, I've outlined the requirements here for new buildings or standalone additions that are greater than or equal to 10,000 gross square feet with a construction cost that's greater than $3 million. Or a comprehensive replacement in an existing building that is greater than or equal to 10,000 gross square feet with total cost greater than $3 million and a 50% or more ERC. So I want to pause here. We are going to cover this on the next slide as well. Any questions related to this table, the tracking and reporting, third-party certification? Wanted to pause there if you're seeing anything, Jason.
Hey, Kelly, Mike Zalashek. So this does not apply to OMA remodels. This applies to new buildings or a standalone addition.
New buildings and then also comprehensive replacements in an existing building that is greater than or equal to 10,000 square feet with the total cost that's greater than $3 million and a 50% or more ERC, estimated replacement cost.
Need some definition of the word replacement, because we change floors, we repaint, we change around walls. Is that equal to replacement or remodeling?
So we've got, up here in this paragraph, we've got comprehensive replacement to a building includes significant opportunities for improvement in energy and water efficiency, as HVAC, lighting, building envelope, and other building components. I would like to defer to Eric if you're on, but my understanding is if we're doing replacement renovation type work in a facility that's 10,000 square feet or greater, and we're hitting these thresholds regardless of how limited the systems replacement is, we would be pursuing this.
So actually, this is Eric. Yes, basically, if it's a building renovation, if the scope is limited to only certain systems, if you go this table 1-1 gives you the overall programmatic requirements. If you go to Chapter 4 and go down to the third-party certification section, then it talks about if you are only working on a mechanical system or something like that, and there's other caveats in there that might apply. So if you basically you're not responsible for getting LEED certification of a project for something that you're not doing. But it is pretty broad in its reach, and so generally, I would assume you are, unless you can really go through that criteria and find one that says, okay, this says we don't have to. I also just posted a link to the UFC 1-202 in the chat window.
And I'll just add a plug there for criteria change requests if folks are finding that information within the USC is confusing or could use better explanation. I think that's also an avenue to identify that as well if there's additional explanation needed for the field.
Yeah, basically, if you go to the whole building design guide and go to the page that lists all the UFCs, you'll see a little CCR off to the right, and that stands for criteria change request. And if you find something is not clear, or if you have other recommendations for changes on any of these documents, you can click that button, put in your name, email address, what the problem is, and what your recommended solution is, and submit it, and it'll go to the discipline working group or functional working group that's responsible on a tri-service basis for maintaining these documents, and they will evaluate it and incorporate it in the next revision.
Yeah, Kelly, Kathleen Huffman actually asked the question. She said, when is the ERC determined and who determines it?
I would have to defer, Eric. Is that done during initial programming for the 1391 being developed?
I think that would be in the project manager's lane, the PM's lane, as they develop the initial project scoping during the 1391 phase. There was a comment about finishes on there. I doubt finishes alone would get up to the 50% replacement cost. I forgot what the E stands for. Okay, could get the replacement cost from the DPW or from the real property department. That's a good question. We'll have to look into that and maybe clarify it.
Hey, Kelly, this is Jerry Oots with Alaska District. Can you explain what item 2 and item 3 may be the difference? Item 3 covers anything over 10,000 square feet, and item 2 seems to have specifics.
Are you talking up here in the tracking and reporting section?
Yes. Over.
So, right. So the tracking and reporting piece, you'll want to access that whole building design guide link on the previous page and navigate to the HPSB checklist. They may also be linked within the UFC. Is that correct, Eric?
Yes, and if you note the first two words of those item 2 and item 3, there's comprehensive replacement of project, in other words, a physical project. If you're doing an existing building assessment, then of course they want the tracking and reporting done for that. That's where you're assessing the building, and so of course they want it reported across the board.
Yeah, so assessments are for existing buildings. So once we've completed, doing any kind of renovation work or we've built a new building, we've got that every 4 years assessment cycle that's out there. So that's the third one is speaking to that specific cycle that we've got for doing assessments on existing buildings. So that would be separate from design and construction, tracking and reporting. Hopefully that clears it up.
Okay, thank you. Understood.
Any other questions, Jason?
I don't think so at this point.
Okay. And so this next slide is just to kind of lay this out graphically for everyone. So this top section, looking at the tracking and reporting piece, kind of what the thresholds are for new buildings versus existing building renovation. Just want to call out that for Air Force specifically, they're looking for tracking all projects. So they're not necessarily limited to these thresholds on the tracking and reporting. So I think any bit of work that we're able to do on a project that, where we're designing and constructing new construction or renovation work of any piece, I think there's an intent to track what improvements have been made that are getting those buildings towards HPSB compliance. So if there is, replacement of selective systems, tracking those specific elements, but then I think the intent would be you'd have not applicable on other areas of scope that's outside of that. Hopefully that explains it well enough for things that may be under that 10,000 square feet and the $3 million 50% replacement cost. And then the thresholds that we covered that trigger the third-party certification, that's the same for everybody. All right, I'll move on to the next. So this slide, we're showing the various third-party certifications in use for DoD projects. Specifically for Army, we're still using LEED, but for Air Force projects, we haven't been using LEED for, I think it's been quite a few years now. They transitioned to the Guiding Principles Compliance and Guiding Principles Assessment tracks offered by Green Building Initiative and Green Business Certification Institute. So just wanted to point that out. And then I believe as far as Green Globes goes, I think that's still available on Navy projects. So Navy, I think, is more open to allowing for any of these to be used. Hopefully that's correct information, Eric. As far as just letting you guys know what the third-party certifications are that are available for each service. All right, and then for Guiding Principles assessments, this is really specific validation by a third party of compliance with the UFC 1202 that's modeled after making sure that we're adhering to all of the federal requirements and guiding principles for sustainable buildings. So the third-party certification point of contact for questions and reviews, that's what we're showing here is GBCI. Their process pretty much follows along with how we do lead projects. So I think we start with an interest form, which is one piece that's different prior to registering a project. And then there's clarification element in there, but then we still follow a two-step process that's available with a design submittal and construction submittal ahead of certification. And then for Green Building Initiative process, this piece is a little bit different. For those of you that have worked on Green Globes products, this may look familiar, but requesting a quote, submitting a survey for the Guiding Principles compliance. So basically marking, I believe this is marking where we're tracking on the project as far as the team's level of compliance evaluated, and then the reviewer that's assigned from GBI is along for the design reviews that we typically have at 35, 65, 95, and they provide a review and preliminary report at that point, and then they come back at the end of construction to do an on-site assessment of your project and provide a review and report at that point prior to the certification. So this is just to run you through kind of what the process is for either one when we're doing an Air Force project. I did want to pause here to discuss security handling of plans and documents. We don't really have a slide for that on here, but I think some projects involve SCIFs or other secure spaces that we can't necessarily just have out there without appropriate security measures in place. And I think, Nicole, if you were out there, I think you had input about on the GBCI handling side for LEED and for green building, or for guiding principles assessment, that there could be an additional fee involved with handling submissions offline so that it is more of a secure processing of documents versus GBI having somebody assigned specific to the project, signing an NDA and having appropriate clearances to be able to support project review in a more secure situation. So I wanted to throw it over to you, Nicole, if you're out there with any other tips or input that you've got there for folks.
Sure, I'm here. I think actually we have a mixture of experiences between some of our conversations with Omaha District, and they've had experience with GBI having that, like you described, Kelly, as a kind of built-in security element there. I think that with our experience with GBCI, the way that they've approached it, they still have, from what I understand, they still have a designated team that will be provided at that first design submittal that will walk through it. But with GBCI, they do typically, if you're wanting that added security, now that may not be required on a majority of our projects, but if you do have a security concern, they can take that additional step to get those right people on there. And both on when we did that for LEED and the system, they would typically ask for a fee for that, but that does not necessarily mean that they they have offered also without a fee. So I think it's more that discussion that has to happen at that beginning stage to make sure you're setting your project up with the right people that you need, depending on that scope of that project and security concern. Over.
Yeah,
Great,
this is Jason Hummel also. So most of the projects that I'm working on currently are for NSA, and so there's it's written into all of our RFPs that before any documentation for either the design or construction submission goes over to USGBC or GBCI, that a security approver for the agency gets that submission first, scrubs it of anything that might be sensitive or classified, and then returns it back to the designer to push over to GBCI.
This is Eric. I also want to note that the policy requiring the LEED Silver certification for the Army is a secretariat level policy. It's from the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Installations, Energy, and Environment. So I understand that there have been some statements and policies and things put out by like SOCOM and things like that say, well, no security your facilities are going to get LEED certified. They don't have, a commander doesn't have the authority to overrule the Secretariat. So even if some representative from one of your users said, well, we have a SCIF in there, so we're not going to do LEED, they don't have the authority to make that decision. They have to submit the project for a waiver, and that's been delegated from the ASA's office to the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for IHP, which I forget what that stands for, Installations, Housing, and Partnerships. So anyway, just keep that in mind. Be very cautious of users that tell you, well, we're not going to do that, we don't want to do that. They don't have the authority to make that call. You can only recommend to them that they submit a waiver, and you can help provide them with a point-by-point breakdown if it's a technical issue, or if they just don't want to do it, then that's on them. Over.
Thanks. Moving on, I'm going to get into LEED, so more focus on the Army requirements Eric just mentioned, and wanted to show it is possible to get gold certification on our projects. Granted, this was one from a while back under version 2.2, but just wanted to highlight that having a collaborative team looking for maximizing innovation and design credits really helps with achieving these goals. So looking at the LEED rating tools, USGBC, they're set up focused on refining and developing the LEED standards, so the LEED rating systems, reference guides, and education content that's on their website, while GBCI is responsible for running the certification and credentialing programs for LEED accredited professionals and LEED building certifications. So just wanted to make that distinction, and they're kind of all tied together via LEED Online, where the project registration and documentation occurs. For LEED certification requirements, we've got elements that are required. There's prerequisites in these categories and that have to be achieved, and then there's credits with points associated that build on top of that. So we've got innovation credits that can be pursued, and I think we have some documentation of routine ones that have been sought under innovation, and I believe having a LEED AP on your project helps get an easy point there. We also have indoor environmental quality credits, materials and resources, location transportation, sustainable sites, energy and atmosphere, and water efficiency. So this is really hitting on a lot of the guiding principles areas, as well as additional focus areas within the Army policy as well. It's definitely not 100% match on all of them, but there are some credits that are aligned well within LEED for these different areas. Let's see. So then how LEED works, essentially for new construction, minimum certification level is 40 points out of 110 available. For the Army certification requirements to the silver level, that's a 50-point minimum that we have to achieve. And then for homes, that's a slightly different scale with a minimum 45 points on a 136-point scale, just to let you know there. Let's see. And yeah, this is just reiterating that there are prerequisites that have to be satisfied before the project can begin to earn points towards certification levels. So for Army, we're still tracking at LEED Silver certification level. We're at the point that LEED version 4 is the rating tool we're under, as LEED version 3 is now sunsetted as of June 30th of this year. LEED V4 has been out there since 2016 timeframe. So hopefully we don't have any straggler projects that are still under LEED version 3. And then for LEED project registration, to get things started on the LEED certification path, you'll want to visit leadonline.com to register your project and start working through identifying compliance with the prerequisites and generally what credits are achievable for your project based on your scope and location. And then just reiterating, Air Force is no longer accepting LEED certification and looking for getting that Guiding Principles assessment or Guiding Principles compliance certification to more directly measure the 100% compliance with the USC 1200-02. All right. And then wanted to go through, LEED version 2.2 is from 2005 and 2009. LEED version 3 was introduced. And then in 2013, LEED version 4 was introduced, although I think the time that we all had to really start registering under V4 was in 2016. And going from version 3 to version 4, credits are more holistically looking at the building life cycle for measuring and quantifying progress. So not just initial inputs at time of construction, but actually looking at the full building life cycle. So for version 3, the cutoff date for any new registrations was back in the end of October of 2016. Like I said, we've passed the sunset date for June 30th. So we're a couple months past that. Before that date, we were encouraging folks to work with GBCI to socialize your schedules and any kind of extensions needed for that certification timeline. At this point, I'm not sure if there are any open projects that didn't do that pre-coordination, if there would be any opportunity to do that. Otherwise, any open projects without kind of having that agreed upon extension for certification would need to be updated to LEED V4. And then for LEED V4, the link at the top you can go to for LEED Online. We started using that November 1st, 2016. Did want to point out that there have been some challenges noted by our teams internally, I think with some of the macros and some of the credit forms, as well as some challenges accessing the site. And I think what we've seen is that some of our teams have had better success using Internet Explorer, surprisingly, to get through on LEED Online, but wanted to pause for any other tips or things that folks should know about access, if Nicole or Eric has anything else to add. All right, moving on. So this is the LEED version 4 checklist. With version 4, I believe we had the introduction of the integrative design process that really ties in well with what our requirements are in the USC 1200-02. This helps highlight where we've got prerequisites in the sustainable sites area, water efficiency, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, indoor environmental quality. And then, as you can see, for innovation, having a lead accredited professional on your team helps get you an added point there. Just having this for reference, out of the 110 points, needing to get 50 to hit silver. And then this is a combination of various elements that you'll see if you're looking at the reference guide on the link shared in the resources page. Essentially, they'll walk you through for the credits what the intent and requirements are, as well as additional information behind the credit and step-by-step guidance for how to get compliance on your project, including calculations that need to be done within the credit templates for submission and getting credit when you go through the design and construction reviews. So there's a lot of helpful information available online that you can access through our USGBC membership. And then 4.1, I believe, is still in beta testing. Did want to provide, well, so for Ashtray, for version 4.1, Ashtray 90.1 2016 is in there, but we're still on 2013 per federal requirements. So there is a crosswalk that can be done. For those of you that are on the ECB distribution list or just looking on Whole Building Design Guide, the ECB 2021-12 was issued yesterday and does talk through some of this Ashtray conversion piece to note, as well as substitution opportunities for 4.1 credits into version 4. I'm going to move to the next slide, and then I'll let Annette jump in for talking through how that substitution works. But essentially, ECB 2021-12 for achieving certification under LEED version 4. Really, this ECB is to support PDTs with achieving LEED credits. Wanted to provide that information out to you guys now that we're firmly in version 4 and have had some projects go through the full life cycle for design and construction and provide some of that additional information to the field. So under the ECB, there's information and guidance provided on integrated process, life cycle cost analysis, DoD, LEED prerequisites and credit waivers. I believe some of that documentation is available on that Whole Building Design Guide Tri-Service page for direct reference of waivers that have been granted in the past that teams can easily access and use for documentation. How to use the official version of Ashtray 90.1 2013, the strategic substitution of LEED v 4.1 credits, and sustainability leadership roles. Finally, we did want to also reiterate for projects, for Army projects and LEED Online, if you could, please add the Army lead at usace.army.mil email address as a member on the project team. That allows headquarters to have access to your projects and be able to track where we're at with achieving certifications, and also can be a resource to help support tracking down any of these kind of waiver documents if you need, and being able to support that on the team. So I wanted to pause and let Annette talk to any of these information and guidance pieces, or Sam, who I believe is on as well. But definitely.
Why don't you go to the next slide?
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. Well, for this slide, we just wanted to also let you guys know there's several appendices in the ECB, and I'll turn it over to you, Annette, if you want to talk through that.
Okay, so we made a picture because that's the easiest thing to use. So you can see the key that REIS is a credit that's supported by federal or Army policy. The little tablet shows there's an Army-wide waiver available. The substitution arrows mean that when we compared the LEAD 4 and the LEAD 4.1 credit, it looked advantageous to use the 4.1 credit. Now, remember, these credits keep going from pilot to official 4.1 credits over time. So this is a snapshot of where we are right now. We put in graphics to indicate the master planning team customer is kind of in control of those strategies. They have opinions. We have a list of questions in the document in the ECB that you can use to talk to the installation staff to find out the answers you need for those location and transportation credits. You know, very specific questions that'll help you get to, like, can you earn that credit or not? There's indication there if the design team or the construction team is responsible for submitting the credits. That's the D or the C. Some of the strategies, like green vehicles there, that the installation DPW staff would have opinions on where you can put in chargers, so you need to talk to them about that. We also have graphics when the construction team has responsibility, because we've had problems where the construction people don't always know what they need to do with respect to LEED credits. So what we did was we looked at all the case studies for V4 credits, pilot or projects that have actually been certified. And there's not a lot of them. And we looked at them all and we kind of figured out what we thought the best guess of how many credits a normal project could get, and it adds up to 50. So the LEED V4.1 pilot credits are different than an official credit. So a pilot credit would be at the bottom of the score sheet. You can get up to 5 of those. So when you look at the LEED 4.1 credits and pilot credits, there is a difference. I don't know.
So what you're saying is the 5, so like for the innovation design credits, that section we've always been limited to 5 credits, and if you're going to pursue a pilot credit from the version 4.1, that counts under that 5 credit limit, right?
Correct. So down there you would have the exemplary performance, the innovation, or the pilot credit. So that's where those go. That was confusing to us for quite a while. And Sam Stidwell did the graphics for this, so this is awesome.
Excellent.
And I want to make sure everyone understands that the swap, they're not talking about the substitution. Substituting a credit, you're basically just substituting the LEED V4 version for the LEED 4.1 version. That's not the pilot credit. On the USGBC website, there is a way you can filter and understand which credits are pilot. So I think it's like the first 4 categories, those are not pilot credits. It is strictly be a separate section of pilot credits.
Great. I think that helps. So it sounds like there's substitution opportunities within the main credit sections, and then there's also up to those 5 down in the innovation section we can pursue. Is that right?
Yep. Exactly.
Great. And then I think I ended up signing myself up before this webinar to provide another webinar, hoping that can maybe be in October to go through this stuff in more detail from the ECB and answer any additional questions folks may have at that time. So that's to be determined what the date is for that, but hoping by October folks will have had a chance to read through that and ask questions at that point.
Kelly, if I can interject on that real quick. One thing the ECB has also in it is an appendix that tells you how to create a USGBC.org account, or if you already have one, to link it to the Army's global membership, if you haven't already. That will give everyone, all Army staff members, employees, access to education at USGBC, and they have thousands of hours of content on there, and a lot of things that go into the weeds about any of these subjects online for online training, and that's all available. So if you haven't partaken of that, and you can earn your CEUs there and all that, also do check out that ECB, I think it's Appendix 5 or something like that, for making sure that your account on usgbc.org is linked, because we pay for that membership, so you get that advantage. Over.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great resource for those that are looking to pursue lead accredited professional status, also for the credential maintenance piece of that on the back end, and then it definitely has a lot of great CEUs that you can use for architect and engineer licenses. So yeah, definitely check that out. If you haven't.
I'm back. I'm sorry, my internet cut out. Over to Kelly.
No problem. Thanks. So, we have several participants in LEAD. It's not just the LEAD AP doing it all. It really takes the full team working together to be successful. So I wanted to make that point. Per the old LEAD implementation guide that will be updated soon, it's strongly encouraged, recommended to have LEAD accredited professionals assigned to the project, both in design and construction. So just want to let you know that that's really helpful in making sure that the team's organized and pulled together around being successful with documenting the credits and making sure the team knows how to navigate through any kind of appeals process for any re-review of credits or follow-up documentation requested from GBCI reviewers. It definitely takes a team, and using the integrated team approach throughout the process of the project will certainly mean you guys will have greater success in achieving that LEED Silver certification threshold that we've got. So becoming a LEED AP, this is what we're going to cover in this section. That's a LEED accredited professional. It's a certification process, test through GBCI, and let's see, let me go on to the next page. There's a two-step process. First, you have to go through LEED Green Associate path. We've got about 120 folks at that level within USACE, although this is dated from FY20, so it could be higher at this point. And then LEED accredited professionals with specialty, about 350 in USACE. And there's also a LEED fellow category. The LEED AP with specialty, there's different tracks. The building design and construction is like the traditionally known new construction piece, but there's also neighborhood development, operations and maintenance, homes, interior design, or interior development core for tenant fit-out projects. So you don't necessarily have to go for the building design and construction if you're working on some of these other areas more specifically. So it's an avenue as well. So how to get your LEED AP, it really starts with including this in your individual development plan with your supervisor to get reimbursement for this as a professional registration. So we wanted to include some tips here for what to enter on your IDP to get this covered at your district. Definitely discuss it with your supervisor, find out what their policies are in place regarding credentials. There is a cost involved on both the Green Associate and the AP exams. And then I believe that there's a fee every 2 years for maintenance associated with these different levels, the Green Associate and AP. So for the credentialing process, first you'll want to establish an account if you haven't done so already. This also ties in with the education piece that Eric mentioned that you'll have access to once you do establish an account on the USGBC page. Please use your usace.army.mil or a mail.mil address so that we can verify that you do work for the Army and can be linked to that account, and you'll be validated via global address book to have access to all that. So you'll establish your password that'll be used on the various associated websites between USGBC and GBCI. On this slide, we've got the corporate access ID that you can use to link to the USACE account. And as Eric mentioned, there's online references, all the credit library information with all the backup reference guides, and then tons of training webinars on various credits, topics. I think there's also available training information for pursuing these credentials. So for registering for the exam, you'll want to go to the usgbc.org credentials link here provided. As I mentioned, there's a two-step process for Green Associate and the AP with specialty. Hopefully this information's still current. It looks like you do get, another thing that you do get is a discount with your linked membership through the USACE account. So you will get, I think it looks like $50 off on the Green Associate exam and $150 off on the specialty exam. So definitely encourage everybody to log in there, use the education resources, and also if you're interested in pursuing being a LEED AP or a Green Associate to support your teams being successful with third-party certifications, definitely recommend pursuing that through our Army account. Anything else you want to add there, Eric?
No, basically a lot of reimbursements are decided at the local level. Don't ask me for money. For people who want to see if they can actually get it paid for. Your supervisor might be willing to give you reimbursement for some of these things if it's directly related to your position. More likely not, but especially for the exams. But there is a lot of the training online available at the education at USGBC.
Okay. And then I'm looking at the fine print here. Just wanted to call out for the Green Associates, there's 15 credit education hours within 2 years of passing that exam. And then when you get the AP with specialty, that increases to 30 continuing education hours within 2 years of passing the exam. Fortunately, a lot of the content on these cross over well with our other professional licenses, so it shouldn't be too much of a stretch. And then again, let's see, exam formats and procedures for taking the exam. Got the cost up here again for these. No prerequisite for the Green Associate, but for AP there is the prerequisite of getting the Green Associate first, experience working on lead registered projects. Strongly recommended just for familiarity with those credits. You'll need to be really familiar with the reference guides and the various calculations within the credits because you'll be expected to do some of those calculations on the exam. For the Green Associate, it's a 100 question multiple choice test, and then for lead AP, I think it's multiple choice, but you'll still have like some calculations involved with that. And then scoring appears to be the same across on a 200 point scale, and you have to get at least 170 points to pass. And then rescheduling cancellations is something to look into given our current environment for sure. See. And then exam preparation, same thing. Really encourage you guys to access all the education material that's available through the Army account that we've got. So definitely looking through all the resource links provided in this presentation and looking through the education tab once you get your subscription linked up with your account. All right, we're at the end, and pause for any additional questions. We got 2 minutes left.
I have a quick question if you have a minute. The numbers that you gave and the information to register in USGBC, is that the same that you use if I already have an account? So do I use that to switch to the global?
That
number? Yes.
So if you already have an account but it's not linked to an organization, or you were previously linked to like a private firm that you switched to USACE from, you'd want to go in there and put this number in to link the Army account to your Army subscription to your account. So there should be, when you go into establish, like if you already have an account, there is an area where you can add in a membership through the corporate ID.
Okay, so you need to change your email, because I had a personal email address. Do I need to change it to the mail.mil? USACE.army.mil or your mail.mil account will be accepted, because we've got this subscription covering USACE and Army folks.
Yeah, my predecessor required people to do that, but to me, if you send me an email from your USACE account and just tell me what your address is that you registered on USGBC, so that I can connect the two dots when I get the request, and then I'll approve it. If people have a legacy account with all their stuff in it, I don't expect them to.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I was looking at what she was saying.
Okay.
Sorry.
If you want to keep your login ID email address the same on the USGBC, if it's like the personal one, just send me an email. This is Eric Mucklow, the only Mucklow in the global.
Okay, I got you. Yes, I'm the one who was watching you previously. Sorry.
That's okay. And then, but you have to go into your current account and identify yourself as U.S. Army with this employee. Your private account, you don't have an employer, a corporate set up in there yet, do you?
I need to change it, and that's what I want to figure out how to clear it up and update it. And I don't want to call on everybody, but I can ask you later if you.
Just go into your profile and update it to this number, and I should get a confirmation.
Okay. And should I send you my personal email address too? Well, the one I use for USGBC?
Yeah, I'll see it. I know who you are now, so I'll see it. If you do, go ahead and do it soon before I forget.
Okay, I do that.
Okay.
I'm going to do it today or tomorrow. We're leaving in a little bit, but if I don't get a chance in this way, I give you a call if I have a question. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Any other questions out there? All right. I think we can end this then. Hopefully this presentation helped with identifying the various third-party certification systems for DoD for all of you, as well as basics on LEAD and LEAD Online and the guiding principles systems in their context. Thanks.